Hi, everybody. We're going to be looking today at the idea of type 1 and type 2 errors when we look at hypothesis testing and also the idea of power. So over here, we have kind of a generic look at what a type 1 and type 2 error might look like. So anytime we do hypothesis testing, we have this thing called the null hypothesis. And there is some sort of truth out there that we're trying to get at. So with the data, all the sample that we did or the experiment, we've got some limited information and we're trying to determine overall if something is true or not. And so one thing that we know could happen is the null hypothesis actually is true, or it could be false. That's the actual truth out there for the entire population, not just our sample. And then you're going to make a decision to either fail to reject that null hypothesis or you're going to reject it. So the two places where there's smiley faces, those would be happy zones where basically the null, in this case, the null is true and you fail to reject it. So that's a good thing. You want that to happen. Or if the null is false, you want to be able to reject the null hypothesis. So there's two types of errors. One will be what we call a type 1 error, and that would be where the null is true, but you end up rejecting it. And that chance is known as alpha. Alpha typically for when we do hypothesis tests is set at 5%, so the chance of a type 1 error is 5%. A type 2 error is a little bit different. That's where the null is false and you fail to reject the null hypothesis. And that's what we call beta. We don't calculate that percentage in this course. You could do it in more advanced statistical courses, but just know beta is the chance of a type 2 error happening. So here's our scenario. Say your math teacher is concerned about her class grades, and so she decides to assign extra work in Khan Academy to see if grades improve overall. So basically, she's getting some information over the next 2 or 3 weeks about grades that would tell her about grades over the long haul, over the year, in future years, all that kind of stuff here. So the step that you always want to take first is you want to write out the null and alternate hypothesis. So I've gone ahead and done that already down here. So remember, null means nothing. It hasn't changed. So our null would be that using Khan Academy does not improve class grades. It's still the same. And then our alternate would be the opposite. So using Khan Academy does improve class grades. So based on what our hypotheses are, it helps us now decide what a type 1 and type 2 error is. So type 1 error would be where the null is actually true. So that would mean in this case that the Khan Academy does not improve class grades, but you believe otherwise. So that's what I have down here, is that class grades remain the same, but she believes they've actually improved through Khan Academy. And then all the time when this happens, there's some sort of impact this has. And in this case, it's about she's going to continue to assign extra Khan Academy work, but it's really not helping class grades. So kids are just doing more stuff, working harder, whatever you want to call it, but grades really are not going to improve in the long haul overall. And then a type 2 error would be exactly the opposite. That grades are going to be improving and getting better over the long haul, but she believes Khan Academy did not help at all. And so that would be she'll stop using Khan Academy if she doesn't think it's going to help. And then basically there will be a missed opportunity to improve class grades. So that's just understand that there's, besides the fact that you can identify in context what a type 1 and type 2 errors, know that you also need to be able to explain the impact of what those errors are. Now, the final thing would be what is power? And power is down here in this happy zone over here. And as it says up here, this is where the null is false and we reject the null hypothesis. So in context, in this situation, here's what power would be. Power would be the ability to accurately determine that Khan Academy is actually improving class grades. And obviously, that's something that would be very important in this situation here because she doesn't want to assign something extra work for students when it really doesn't help. So hopefully this will help you understand now how type 1, type 2, and power works in context.